Disclaimer. The goal of CTMA is to analyze and compare the potential different outcomes of a game or match from CTWC, predominantly CTWC 2019. One way I do this is by giving hypothetical situations that could happen after a said adjustment was made. This explains going ahead in the sequence more than two pieces. Predominantly, adjustments and mistakes are corrected on the first and the second piece located in the next box. The goal of CTMA is to explore stacking theory and to increase stacking knowledge to both the players and the general audience. Thank you so much for understanding, and I hope you enjoy the video. Svavar, 3-time CTEC champion as well as a formidable opponent in CTWC. Even though he predominantly plays POW, he shows an absolutely insane mastery of NTSC Tetris. Batfoy, newcomer onto the scene in 2019, made an absolute splash in his debut, making it all the way to top 4. Both of these highly skilled players, both being DAS players as well, find each other in round 1 after Svavar had to survive round 0 matchup. However, Batfoy was able to squeeze by 2-1 with their second game going all the way to kill screen, most games being separated by just a Tetris. So, what if the games were played slightly differently? What if Svavar had survived where originally he did not? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what me and aGameScout are going to be exploring here today in this episode of CTMA. Starting off with game 1 of Batfoy versus Svavar. Now, I feel like this particular matchup was underrated. Like, I feel like it should have got more attention because I like how incredibly close it was for a round 1 matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of these players, they could have easily faced off in the top 8, or potentially even the semifinals. They're two of the very strongest players at the tournament.
Yeah, especially as both of these players are DAS players. Batfoy, I have it written down that Batfoy makes his first mistake, or I call it a mistake, but it's really just adjustments that could have been done to make the dig more efficient. And he kind of does the first mistake roughly around 16 lines.
Right.
So right now he's building very clean. And it comes right after he's going to knock down this Tetris after holding out the drought. And it's just because of the way he's kind of building up.
Oof, that DAS
he does
load.
That, yeah. So early DAS load caused him to kind of make that mistake. Now, there was a sequence that I have written down on how he could have essentially solved that in a most efficient manner. I mean, even though this early DAS load, just because of the way that he creatively builds, it only cost him 3 lines. Instead, it could have potentially only cost him like maybe 1 or 2, which that it might come down to you needing that 1 extra or 2 extra lines going into kill screen. So after I always animate this stuff on screen.
Yeah.
So what I would have done after this is, first things first, I would have put the L in columns 8 and 9. So I would have, like, instead of staying down and sticking it all the way to the left, I'd put the L in columns 8 through 9. The reason why I would personally do that is because this is a situation I recognize because it's something that I do in order to stay efficient by going for a delayed burn. So when I put that L over there on the right hand side on columns 8 through 9, it starts to fill up that space so I can go for a roof burn. So that L would go in columns 8 through 9, then the Z would have gone in columns 3 through 4. So place the Z like right here. And then the J would have then gone in columns 8 through 10. So in double rotating this J, because we already placed the L right here, double rotating the J, it now already sets up that 1 line to be burned. Then the T piece would go in columns 2 through 3, which would have been created since we never put this L over here to the left. Then L piece would have gone in columns 6 through 7, burning out that singular line. And then the I piece would go in column 5 when we had built up that dependency. And now doing all that, we only burned 1 line and we're only a single Mino off of being Tetris ready.
Yeah.
That was only one solution that I found. Another solution would be to place the L piece in columns 8 and 9, the first L piece in the sequence, in columns 8 and 9. And the Z would go in columns 7 through 8. The J would have then gone in columns 6 through 7. And then the T could have gone in either 2 or 3 or 2 or 4. It didn't really matter. L would have gone in columns 9 through 10. And then the I would have gone in column 5. So both of those solutions, incredibly efficient. Only you have to burn one line and you're just about Tetris ready for whenever the next drought comes.
Yeah, I think it's one of like the major principles of efficiency is when you have a hole in your stack, you don't need to burn any lines below that hole. You just need to burn the lines above. And
even though it might have been slightly risky had he not received that exact same piece sequence, but still, while building up with that kind of a style in mind, there is, potential that, you can still stay more efficient in your opponent. Because I think one thing that I like to stress in these breakdowns is it's same pieces. Each time you don't capitalize on a Tetris and your opponent does, you fall behind. And that could be, in fact, the difference between win or loss, which actually in game 2, it is. So the next mistake, we actually almost just passed it. It comes up around 27 lines. And this one is kind of like error on recognition. And, I mean, because of this, it ends up costing him 5 lines later. But it's to the point to where you have to know to kind of like make that adjustment. So the adjustment, of course, was just moving the eyepiece over. So right whenever you get the eyepiece, you see that the O piece is next. What you could have easily done is, even if you lose Daz, you can just tap the eyepiece in the column 4. And when it comes to kind of adjustments like these, recognition for adjustments is, very important. And personally, I'd avoid placing the eyepiece to the left, because when you place the eyepiece to the left, you now build up a ZT dependency. And I think it might be, a couple people might disagree with me on this, because generally, you want to try and build your left as high as possible so that way you have ways to burn. But
yeah, this is a very interesting board setup where, I mean, the obvious instinct in most situations when you get a line piece when you're not Tetris ready is to stick it to the very left. But in this situation, that just creates a very zigzaggy board. It doesn't make the board in the center any flatter. It just makes it more jagged.
The way that I look at situations like these is that I see how many accommodations I can have for a particular dependency. Because placing that eyepiece in column 1, TZ dependency, only 2 pieces can cleanly solve it, unless you of course get an eyepiece, which ideally you want to use that eyepiece to score a Tetris. However, if you put the eyepiece in column 4, you do have this gap in the stack, because you will put the square, in columns 1 through 2. You do have this gap in your stack, but you now have a dependency that's accommodating for 3 pieces. Like 3 to 5 pieces can actually solve that. You can use the T piece, the I piece, the L, the J, and I believe it's the Z piece. Yeah, the Z piece. So you have a 3 to 5 piece, dependency, which not really isn't a piece dependency, just 3 to 5 piece accommodation for that one little hole, as opposed to having a 2 piece dependency and still kind of having a jagged stack and doing that.
Yeah. I think this setup especially just reminds me that I remember Jonas saying it once, where he said, like, the line piece really sucks for building when you're not Tetris ready, because if you can't place it flat, then it can create spires, and you just basically have to really figure out where the most economical situation is to put it.
Yeah. And so, because of Batfoy placing this, the pieces that follow are just like so incredibly unfriendly, because now he sets up one of these parodies. Now, this parody in particular is one of the more difficult parodies to solve, because if you get the S piece, you place the S piece right there in columns 3 through 4. You just set up an I piece dependency.
Oof, yeah.
So you're hoping for a T piece to either go either place, either set up a J piece dependency or set up a Z piece dependency. You're reliant on jagged pieces in order to help get you out of this. And of course, there are a couple of creative ways you can deal with that, but when you're getting high up on the board, like we're now starting to approach an Xbox height roughly. When you're starting to get high up on the board, you generally want to avoid setting up delay burns unless like the next piece is going to be a long bar, so you can take that Tetris and then resolve that delay burn afterwards. This is when I'd stop personally, even though delay burns are like a heavy part of my style. I would stop like building delay burns right here because I know that the risk associated with them, at least in a tournament match, is just way too great if I just so happen to run into a drought.
Yeah.
So this ends up costing Batfoy 5 lines, and so now, even though Svavar hasn't really been necessarily playing as efficient, Batfoy essentially could have given Svavar a 2 Tetris lead at the start of the game, first 30 lines in.
Mm-hmm. I think it was, so in addition to not just noting things that they could have done differently, I also was curious to point out things that they did that seemed very counterintuitive, but were actually the right move. I think Svavar's stuck in a suboptimal burning situation up here. He's got a very perfect stack, Tetris ready, but he's in the middle of a bit of a drought. He's trying to set up these delayed burns while also keeping his stack open. So he has to block it there. He gets the T over. What does he use? Right, so he sets up that L right there to take a delayed burn when he could have placed it flat and kept his well open. Let's see. Right there. So, would you have done that move in that situation?
Yes, but only if I was going in a tournament match, I would, because now when I'm up that high, I shift from playing efficient to playing safe to make sure I survive. Because remember, if you top out on level 18, that's almost a guaranteed victory for your opponent. Especially when we're at the World Championships, early top out is almost like a free win for your opponent.
Yeah.
So, personally, I felt that I was fine with this, except for I think I disagree with him placing these long bars on the end. I know that a long bar can get over here to the left-hand side, which I'd have definitely place at least one of those long bars to the left-hand side. That way I keep that double well open, and I have, material over there to the left. And probably instead of, burning off with this L, I would have just stuck the L right here to kind of, give myself room to burn. So, yes, it is safer play, and I'm not utilizing on some of the long bars RNG has given me, but my board health is now in a much better position, because think about if Svavar would have got droughted for the right pieces when he was up that high. That could have been the end of the game right there.
Yeah, and you also bring up a very interesting point where the double wide well, it can accommodate a line piece, but a line piece is really probably not the piece you want to put there, because in most situations, a line piece will plug up the entire flexibility of the double wide well, and then you're stuck in a situation where you can't use a delayed burn cleanly. So I would agree with you, yeah.
The only time I would place a long bar down column 9 is if I have like an exaggerated double weld build, and I say that an exaggerated double wide weld is if I have it where it's either 4 or more spaces where a long bar can still go in, but I still have room to burn down.
Right, so you have like the huge double wide well, so it's like 6 or 7 pieces high. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so yeah, that'd be the only instance I'd say I'd safely put the long bar, at least in a competitive match, safely put the long bar in column 9, because even, taking a triple here isn't a bad idea. You never know what pieces you're given, and like I said, had the pieces just been slightly different, Svavar could have topped out here.
Yeah, I think in the exact moment where we're paused on the screen cap, it looks to me like maybe the best move would have been put the long bar all the way to the left, and then put the L and take a single in that double wide well. And then you still kind of have this lip open where you could set up some delayed burns more easily. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. And you also give yourself an opportunity, in case you still run into a drought, you can use an L to burn down a double and then burn down a single, which, that's 3 lines you take off your stack, and those 3 lines can potentially make a difference whether you can get a piece over to the left or not.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very good point. Fast forwarding to 66 lines, we both have it that Svavar does something.
Yeah.
So he knocks down this Tetris. Now,
I think it was right there.
Yeah. He didn't have to take that particular line burn. In fact, he actually played 2 flat, and because of that flat play, after he does all this, he ends up burning 12 lines because of how flat he's playing, which that's kind of crazy. Because now he's going to run into a drought, and you see how his board state is not friendly at all. Especially with this particular sequence, you have that I, now you have that L, and the only thing you could do is take that I, put it in column 5 to burn out that single, and then just plug your well again with the L. That's the only real clean placements that you could kind of do here.
Yeah. Although one interesting thing that occurred to me when I was rewatching this, where we kind of both agree that Svavar wasted a line there with that burn, is I think the reason he did that was because he was probably planning out that move with the stack before the Tetris in mind, where it was super high. I think it's something that I recognize I do a lot as well when I'm watching games back, and I'll see, oh, this move makes total sense, but only after my current piece has burned away what it's going to do. So he's got a super high stack. It's now super low after that Tetris, but it was super high beforehand. So it can be, I think it's super, super challenging to see the optimal move of a board after your current piece has burned away what it has, because then you're having to imagine a whole step ahead in a shape of a board that's new.
Yeah, I mean, generally with a Tetris, that is kind of easy to do, because if you would know what you would have done prior, that's kind of what I do whenever I build. That's why I always seem to look ahead.
Yeah,
because I generally always keep the state of my board accommodation running in the background of my head, and I push down, so even less time to think. But Svavar, in this case, he played 2 flat. The only time I'd particularly do that particular Z burn is if I'm either getting too high, or doing that Z burn would get me Tetris ready when the long bar is next.
Mm-hmm.
What I personally would have done in this situation is I would have placed that Z in columns 3 and 4, and then left columns 8 and 9 to where ideally I could put an S or a T. Because if I get an S, Tetris ready. If I get a T, I have 2 options, which, depending on what piece is next, I might either continue to stack it up or make it go flat to, accommodate, let's say, a square or an L or a J.
Mm-hmm.
But in putting that Z piece over in column 3 and 4, that since that leaves his column 8 and 9 open, that J piece, he can actually do a double rotation and burn it off to the side, still continuing his double well while also keeping his stack 1 line shorter.
Oh, true.
And in this particular situation, they run into a 17-piece drought. Having that double wide well, even though it just helps out a bunch in drought management. And because Svavar decided to play flat immediately instead of waiting a little bit, he ends up burning 12 lines. So then the 8 lines that Batfoy had burned earlier are essentially just given back. And then some.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so personally, I felt like after this, both of these players played pretty clean up until the post-transition, where you actually found something that Batfoy could have done potentially better.
I was speculating. I was like, is there a better way to go about this sequence?
again, Svavar has already transitioned 50,000 points behind, which is almost the exact amount of the lines that he gave away to Batfoy. So, I agree. I disagree with that Z placement. Personally, at least for me, it's a delay burn that I use very commonly on 19. Is after that Tetris, I would have stood this up to the left, or to the right, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So stood it up, and then now you have a couple of pieces that you have plenty of pieces that can burn out that double. And it's not a risky delay burn per se. So potentially, stood that up, get that. And that's actually that's great piece, because then that would help burn out one line, and then you can use the long bar to burn out another line. But
yeah, I guess
still, it's just something I would have done just slightly different from my personal stacking theory.
Yeah, I guess the hard part about that placement is that it means you have to plug something over to the right in order to clean out row 2, which means that you're going to have to spend a bunch more lines getting down to where you can set up the traditional right well stack again.
Yeah, and the only way to really cleanly solve this is you need to get the J, and then preferably get like a T, a Z, or a T, or T or a S, actually. T or an S.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a J and then T or S. The reason why I don't say Z is because then you build up a ZT dependency, and you kind of build up your column 9 a little bit more. And in building up your column 9, you take away the ability for you to burn off anything off to the side. So if things got dangerous and you got droughted for the Z and the T, then that particular setup of, choosing to plug that hole with the Z, even though you want to try and hurry up and burn out of it fast, could potentially be your downfall.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way I'd see it. So, yeah, he could have avoided doing as many burns, but it is a safer way to stack. That's another interesting one that I actually didn't catch. I'm pretty sure that J piece could have gone over, even if it is with a quick tap. It goes over without a quick tap, so he could definitely, if he didn't feel sure, he could quick tap the J piece over.
I don't know, is Batfoy a quick tapper?
Yes, he does quick tap.
Okay.
Since, quick tap and Daz go in conjunction with each other. It's just that I feel like a couple people haven't necessarily found the way for them to quick tap just quite yet.
Yeah, I'm always never sure because of when I found out that Jeff didn't even know what a quick tap was until after CTWC 2019. I was like, oh wait, a lot of people don't even use it at all.
Yeah, they are just really great at maintaining Daz. So if he would have started off going left, like obviously not even the red fireball technique would have got that over. If he would have started going left, that would have easily fit right there.
Mm-hmm.
Place the long bar over here in column 7, and he has a 3 wide well that he can work with,
mm-hmm.
which is easily the more safe build. Or even what he could have done, instead of trying to fill in this L piece dependency first, because I feel like on 19 you want to fill in L dependencies almost immediately if you can access them. Even what he could have done, seeing that this long bar was next, rotate it one more time, laid it flat, intentionally setting up the long bar dependency, then putting the long bar in the dependency, burning out a double, and now stack is once again lower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alright, and then Svavar is actually going to make his mistake that I say kind of like decides the game.
You have the note at 143 lines. I put the note at 145 lines. This whole sequence looked very difficult to me in trying to figure out what I would do differently.
Bingo. Oh yeah, this was a difficult sequence for me as well. In fact, I didn't have necessarily too much I figured that he could do with it. So the reason why I put it at 143 is because Svavar is, of course, a Daz player, and in order to understand my reasoning, we have to understand about playing level 19 as a DAS player. The left side on level 19 should always be built as high as possible, as long as you keep it kind of safe. And you generally want your column 1 and column 2 to be even with each other, or at worst, if that's even the right word to use for this, at worst you have at least column 1 as your highest. And the reason why it should be built as high as possible, because it gives you insurance. That way you can continue to burn off lines even if you start stacking up high. And Svavar was giving 2 choices for this Z placement right here. He could have placed the Z placement right here, or actually he's given like 3 choices. But 2 choices I'd say that are reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
He can either place the Z placement right here in columns 5 through 7, or place it in 1 through 3. Personally, I'd have placed it in 1 through 3. Placing it in 1 through 3 allows him a slightly higher left-hand side, and it's a 2 wide flat left as well, which means he can throw squares over there if he gets them, and using the following pieces to help him skim. So then this L piece could have gone and skimmed out a line to get him almost Tetris ready. And then this J piece would have gone right here, and he would have been Tetris ready. And instead of him placing the J piece in columns 5 through 7 right here, it should have gone in 8 through 10. So like double rotate, and then, or not double rotate, just go ahead and keep the safe burn. Because now the commentators, I'm pretty sure they said it. I'm not entirely sure. I don't quite remember. But I'm pretty sure they said that Svavar is, behind by like a Tetris and a half. If you top out early, knowing that you're behind, the last thing you want to do is top out early. So it's fine to go for a safe conservative burn here at, 144 lines. Just go ahead and dump this over there, cover up the well, place the following Z piece over, and then you got the T piece to burn out where you covered up the well, and you're almost Tetris ready again.
Yeah.
And so because the lack of either placing that first S all the way in columns 1 through 3, or placing that J piece in columns 8 through 10, Svavar now it gets put into a rough situation with the following pieces as they're jagged, and now he can no longer place any piece over to the left, forces to set up a delay burn with the square, and the 17-piece drought gets to him, and that is an 8 high, which he will turn it into a 7 high, which he can actually, if you have a well-timed quick tap, you can get that over. But that requires you to have perfect dash charge.
Yeah, so in this situation, I actually wrote maybe he could have put the L over to the left, and that maybe would have saved him if he could try and get it down to a 6 high. Because when I watched him top out here from missing the quick tap, I felt like it was deja vu from last year, when I think both of his games against Jonas, he died from a quick tap. Or I think it was his first game against Jonas, he died from 2 missed quick taps in a row.
Yeah, that actually could work, because since he just has to daz that L over there, and then he'd have a couple places for that square, and then the long bar would have came to burn down 2 lines instead of just 1.
Yeah, it's a gamble, because then when you stick the L over, you need to burn off both of those lines very quickly.
Without building up too... Yeah. So either way, either quick tapping that long bar over, or just, trying to flat burn it with the L, both of them are, of course, gambles. The gambles with getting the long bar over is you miss the quick tap, gamble with placing the L over there, you don't get the right pieces to burn it out quickly enough, and now your left is too high for you to do anything with it.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to how confident you are with your quick tap on the line piece. Because, if you miss the quick tap, it's game over. But this is also already such a dire situation, you kind of just have to go for stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's why I said that I felt like 140 or 143, whenever he didn't make those moves, that's what kind of like decided his fate, because of the piece sequence that followed.
Yeah, absolutely. You always want to have that sloping build.
Yeah, So then Svavar tops out, Batfoy wins game 1. Now, basically, the amount that Svavar lost by was almost the exact amount of line burn differential, like essentially lines that could have been avoided burn differential. Since Batfoy burned 8, Svavar burned 12, that's like 22,000-ish, or almost 23,000-ish, that would have separated Batfoy and Svavar's score had they, kept on their like exact Tetris rate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's always interesting to kind of like look at the math behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, starting with game 2, Batfoy took game 1. Svavar had a early top out, and really it's just when it comes down to situations like this, first game plan of the day, because this was done on a separate day, might just be first game nerves.
My next note is at line 51. I thought Svavar made a nice decision with his square.
Right here, you're talking about when he makes this square overhang, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that move is one that I do a lot, or at least try and make that overhang, because there's a lot of pieces that can actually go over there. The most common one to do is, just do get an S piece and tuck it right underneath. But you can also, if you like get a T piece and you don't have anywhere for it, you can do like a T spin to burn out a single, and then have, the JS dependency, or you can go for an L or a J spin, or worst case scenario, if you really don't get any pieces and you're high enough for it, you can, just drop a long bar in there and take, a double or triple, and then able to burn out. And I feel like it's just one of those moves that your elite players will recognize, because anywhere he would have placed that square, I mean, he could have placed it in columns like 2 through 3, but that would have set up a long bar dependency, and you can't really rely on RNG to give you the long bar.
Yeah, he kind of had a couple different options. Yeah, places 2 through 3 would have probably been the worst, just because it would have set up a long bar dependency, and he did have a long bar coming next, but he couldn't have relied on that. Placing it on columns 4 through 5 would have been one of the only other clean places to put it, but that would create an uncomfortable spire in the center of your board, which you want to avoid. Yeah. And you could also put it in columns 9 and 10 and just like burn a single and then set up another burn, but that's committing right away. With that move, you're committing to 2 burns. With the square decision he put here, he's leaving the option open to take no burns at all. Which I think was the pro move.
Yeah, and then worst case scenario, like even if this were to be done on, level 19, and you're not necessarily confident on your ability to do floating spins, because that right there, that's a floating spin. Like you'd have to time it midair, and I feel like floating spins on 19 are harder to do, at least for me personally. So even then, all he has to do is, just drop the L all the way over and burn out a triple, bringing his stack down. So even though it looks like a weird kind of formation, it's really creative, and it opens up the board to a lot more piece accommodations.
Yeah. This is a random question. So, would you be able to put an S in there if you had to? Would you be able to an S spin in there?
Oh, you don't have to S spin. You could just tuck the S right underneath, and you'll be Tetris ready.
Oh.
So yeah, S would have gone perfectly, and you'd still have like a way. So
whoops!
Like you were getting droughted.
My bad. It's piece dyslexia. I'm thinking Z.
Oh yeah, you can spin a Z in there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it will burn one line, and then you will be forced to either hold out for a J piece for a tuck or an S piece for a spin.
Yeah, I was forgetting if you were trapped with the wall kickback.
Yeah, but this kind of board is essentially accommodated for every single piece. If you would have got another O, you would have still been able to stack on it, but an O burst here would be rather deadly.
Yeah, I think that if you got another O, I think the next best spot would be to just place it on top there in the middle on columns 6 and 7. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's column 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably if he would have got a third O, and even though we're looking really deep into this, if he would have got a third O, I would have tucked it underneath and just get ready for a delay burn.
Yeah.
At least in a competitive setting, that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
If I was going for, score, I'd just continue stacking on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so definitely great find right there. However, Svavar is going to make a kind of a mistake in oh wow.
A controversial decision.
Controversial decision. Roughly at 57 lines. So it's going to be, he really missed a chance to score a Tetris, just because you kind of see the way he's building. He's taking a very long time to get Tetris ready. And generally Jonas, he has said in one of his Tetris 101-ish videos, he's in tournament Tetris, you want to get Tetris ready as soon as possible. And as you see right here, because he was unable to utilize those 2 long bars for a Tetris, he's having to burn a lot of lines. And we discussed earlier that Batfoy had lost, he was already falling a Tetris behind because of those 5 lines he had to burn at the beginning. And now Svavar burning all these lines is losing significant amount of pace.
Yeah.
So,
and one of the things I also remember from Jonas's videos is that he hates taking triples. He says if you can take a single instead of a triple, that's almost always the better move. That's the one he prefers. And I think in that situation, it was where Svavar could have taken a single, but he took a triple just to kind of get the board down a bit, which was a less risky play, but it ended up costing him a lot of lines. Looking at the full picture.
So let's just go back. Simply what could have been done.
I guess in the situation where he takes the triple, is the board high enough where it looks too risky without knowledge of what's coming next? Let's take a look.
He burns that off to the side, and then that's what kind of does him is the pieces. No, right here. He takes a triple there.
Yeah, it seems like a spot where it was a little awkward. There was a little valley that might have been could have festered in something pretty piece dependent, but it didn't seem super high.
So really, if he would have just stacked better, he could have avoided this, because he actually burned 24 lines from this, which that's 6 Tetrises. That's 130,000 points that Batfoy could have potentially gained a lead on in game 2. And for those of you that haven't watched, Batfoy lost this game by 1 Tetris. Yeah. So if Batfoy was able to capitalize just at even 2 of these, since it was Tetris on, I believe, 28, Batfoy was able to capitalize on 2 of these Tetrises during Svavar's kind of dig. Batfoy would have been able to take game 2, and there would be a no game 3 decider.
Yeah. I do understand Batfoy taking a little bit off the gas since he is the underdog in this matchup. He said in later interviews he was not expecting to win this match. Svavar's kind of playing, he's playing sudden death. He's now up against the wall. So perhaps I can see that other angle where Svavar would maybe want to make a little bit less risky moves. In fact, both of them.
Yeah, definitely. So right here, one thing that I probably would have done differently would just to be, instead of placing this right here, I probably would have gone ahead and burn it out, keep the stack just a little bit lower, because eventually what's going to result in, he's going to place that eyepiece on that column 8, and even though it's it's a fine placement, you generally want your left to be as high built so that way you can skim if needed. And by placing your eyepiece on column 8, you're relying on either another eyepiece to get Tetris ready or an L, J, or T to get Tetris ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so then because of that, there's really only limited pieces that could have burned and skimmed to stay Tetris ready. And then that's going to just spiral into a bunch of other things. Even right here, it could have taken a triple, because this build isn't necessarily the friendliest. But it's just, these adjustments is where you have to, kind of take a risk. And in this case, the risk for Svavar did not play out in his favor.
Yeah.
However, Batfoy is going to be the next one to miss out on an adjustment, and it's going to cost him 11 lines. See, Batfoy, knocks down a Tetris, and it looks like his build is very clean right now. I mean,
it's got the giant double wide well.
Yeah, the exaggerated double wide, and then we saw that after he had to do that.
Did he? So that's
that Tuck decision.
I'm actually looking at that little square spire that got really uncomfortable for him in a moment. He made an interesting decision to place a square right in the center of the board, and he doubled down on it when he got a second square. I wonder if that kind of rattled him a bit. Did you see that?
Yeah, so...
Right there, yeah. That looked very uncomfortable. So what happened here?
So, right there.
Oh, right there, yeah. I don't know if I would have put the square there.
Yeah, it was definitely an awkward position. There really isn't any place he could have placed that S that would have been clean. I mean, he could have tried to tuck it underneath here and set up an overhang, but that's kind of risky, especially when you're up this high. And then probably use the O to burn down for a double to keep it safe.
I would have I would have probably placed the first O on columns 3 and 4. I don't know if that would have been better or not. What would you have done?
Yeah, I probably, in the case that he played this, I would have placed the first O in columns 3 through 4. But really, what kind of spiraled this entire burn session of unable to score Tetris is setting up this overhang right here. Now, this particular overhang, it's good for taking up horizontal space, and generally sometimes when I'm stacking or trying to get Tetris ready, you generally are looking to go for more horizontal space as opposed to vertical space. But in this case, because of the P sequence that follows, when he decided to do horizontal space and his board isn't Tetris ready, it kind of puts him to a situation where he limits the board accommodation.
Yeah.
And so, at least what I would have done is, instead of placing it horizontal, I would have stacked it up right here.
Yeah.
So in columns 3 through 4, that gives enough space for this O, or can simply just burn the O off if needed, and then the following S could either go on top and set up an overhang, or could have gone somewhere else on the board, potentially set up another like a horizontal overhang. In that case, it'd be fine because I have O's to burn down and correct the build.
Yeah, you hate to use O's to burn down in this situation because it doesn't give you any progress towards becoming Tetris ready. It's kind of just like a complete wash. But it's what you got to do if you're in a risky situation.
Overall, with this particular build, the sequence was just very not helpful to Batfoy, and it was going to result in him burning lines either way, but potentially making a couple of adjustments and a couple of other decisions, he might not have had to burn 11 lines and given up just about 3 Tetrises to Svavar. Because we already discussed, Svavar have already sacrificed 6 potential Tetrises, and that means that the difference between them is 2 Tetris, or not 2, 5 Tetrises, and Batfoy with this 11-line burn is giving 3 of those Tetrises back, and that's just off of missed adjustments.
Yeah.
So both of these players I felt played very well up until roughly around transition, where Batfoy is going to have a massive misdrop, and his survival on this misdrop is absolutely phenomenal. So right here we see everything's going fine, and then he's able to knock down a Tetris, and then misdrop comes when he accidentally rotates that T. Now, one thing I do like to point out is I started using this whenever I watch this game, is because for a last-ditch effort, it's kind of like the best thing to do, but getting this J piece and putting over like this. And the reason why I feel like that's kind of like notable is because if it's a last ditch effort and you're trying to hold out for the long bar, getting that J piece that fills up two rows so you can start burning it down. And generally, if you do get the long bar and you knock down Tetris, you bring your stack down by 4. You should, even after you open up whatever kind of gap you might have over here, you should still be able to burn it down. but the reason why I feel like this particular adjustment is what saves him is because if he were to place this J anywhere else, he would have topped out and lost right here.
Right, because basically in this situation, even if he gets the Tetris, if he hangs an additional piece on the left, even that Tetris is going to mean that the left column is going to be too high for him to get anything over. So he needs just material on that column 1 to just be able to use to burn.
Yeah, and I believe the only material they could have fit there would be to either that J piece or, you know, even just trying to get an O over there to, you know, fill in some space.
Yeah.
So if he didn't do that one move, then he would have lost this game right then and there. So I think that's one thing that is severely underrated. And whenever I actually, like, when I saw it, I actually incorporated it to my own play, and that saved so many games, even in competitive, where I would have died had I placed that J anywhere else.
Yeah.
But that T-piece rotation is going to cost Batfoy like 37 something lines to try and dig out. And you kind of see how he's able to get those squares over to the left because, you know, squares generally can get higher on level 19. And now opens up that hole, and now he's back to a position that's more comfortable to dig out of.
Yeah, that was a really clutch J to get the triple on the left.
But probably see if there's anything else he could have done with that T-piece. So instead of probably trying to get this T-piece all the way over, I might have like placed it somewhere right here. Or worst case scenario, just threw it all the way over to the right if I didn't feel comfortable with my build. And generally, if your left isn't necessarily too high, especially if you're a DAS player, then in this situation, throwing the T over to take 3 burn lines is more ideal than trying to get it all the way over to the left. Because even though it's not, you know, not necessarily a thing that you have to quick tap, it seems by the look of this that he didn't have a full dash charge.
Yeah. I don't know the exact math on how some of these pieces can get over with DAS. Does it look like with fully charged DAS that T should have gone over?
Yeah, fully charged DAS, the T should have gone over. I assumed on the last piece that he skill stopped, that he like skill stopped within the 4th or 5th frame.
Yeah.
Which probably led him to have a partial dash charge. And so then, in order to have gotten this T-piece over with a partial dash charge, he would have to do a quick tap, which that's one kind of skill that I feel like DAS players, if they are to be, you know, competitively viable up against these high level players, they'd have to recognize when they have like a partial dash charge or a full dash charge, which obviously comes, you know, with time, because I can attest to how many times when I finally, you know, got the long bar, but I was like maybe like 4 or 5 high and I didn't have full dash, so I recognized that, so I had to quick tap it over.
Yeah, when I was
as opposed to hanging it.
Yeah, when I was playing with DAS, first learning level 19, before I even knew that skill stops didn't always result in full DAS charge, I would like subconsciously just be like throwing pieces to the right for wall charges when trying to put something to the left. And after a while, I suddenly realized, oh, wall charges guarantee fully charged DAS. That's why I subconsciously tried doing that. Even though oftentimes throwing something to the right wouldn't always be the best spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many levels to playing with DAS. You're having
I feel like personally, like the limitations, even though we have your hard limitations, like long bar can't get over 9 high with DAS on the left or other things, I feel like the limitations haven't necessarily been completely explored. And I feel like it's best demonstrated by like Harry, Jonas, Green Tea. Because, I mean, I feel like there's the assumption that you always lose Daz when you quick tap. But if you take a look at Green Tea, who scored 17 lines from level 19 start, a lot of pieces he had to quick tap. And I'm sure if he lost Daz on every single quick tap, he wouldn't have been able to score 17 lines.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a conversation for another day.
Yeah.
But after this, Batfoy does, burn 37 lines, and he's still in the game with Svavar. However, he runs into another situation roughly around 183 lines, where his kind of stacking causes him to burn even more lines, and it's going to burn an additional 16. So right here, and we just noticed that he's being forced to, kind of throw those long bars over, and out of all that time, he's now deciding to go really aggressive with this, and he hangs that piece. And I honestly believe that hanging any piece on column 3 is like one of the deadliest hangs on level 19. And so then probably what could have been done, because at this point, the commentators should be updating Batfoy. He's in the lead. Svavar knocks down Tetris, and now it's practically neck and neck. They're separated by a double. After seeing a board like this, maybe the best thing to do right here is to take a triple.
Yeah.
Even though it is painful to take, if he would have taken a triple, he wouldn't have hung that piece on the left-hand side, and then he wouldn't have burned 16 lines, which is 4 Tetrises, which 4 Tetrises on 19, that's 100,000 points. You're now hoping for your opponent to be really inefficient or to top out early within the next few levels, because we're kind of getting to the end game to where the points left to be scored gets starting to, cap off, and things start to become, mathematically challenging for you to be able to catch your opponent's score, depending on how big the margin between your score is.
Yeah, the thing that sucks about taking a triple in this situation is that you're basically committing yourself to even more burns, inevitably, unless you try and set up a Tetris on column 9.
Yeah.
Or something crazy. So yeah, like this...
Yeah,
the board looked pretty accommodating because he had room to do delayed burns. That's just oof.
Yeah, I mean, even if he didn't take the triple at that long bar, and probably because, he's comfortable with this, like right here, he could have taken a triple.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In this situation, would have been a place to take a triple, because that's getting pretty high for Das. Don't have a lot of options. The left isn't completely built out.
No. So if he would have taken that triple, he would have he could have, placed the T on top of here, or even, try and go for a delay burn right here to get Tetris ready to use that next L, and then he would have still been able to knock down that Tetris that comes, the lines would come a couple lines later. But because of, just failure to, he was playing very aggressive, and even though, that in order to have to beat these good players like Svavar and such, you have to play aggressive. You also got to take in consideration you're up 1 game to none. So I guess this is when, tournament play strategy comes into effect. If you're up 1 game to none, even though you might want to finish off your opponent, it's better to, make them work for it by trying making it to the kill screen while also staying efficient, as opposed to, sacrificing so many points or even an early top out.
Yeah, I'm watching this post the 16 and 7 or 26 and 27 level play by Batfoy. Oof, oh, that was so painful. But he was playing really aggressive and really clean up until those deadly misdrops.
Yes, and those deadly misdrops are what's going to be like the deciding move from the game, because after this, it's not possible for him to come back from Svavar, because Svavar's board is clean, and all he needs is 1 Tetris now in order to, secure his victory for sure.
Yeah.
And so, what could Batfoy potentially have done differently? It looks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So that right there, that's going to be, the misdrop, and it looks like he might have accidentally tapped on it, because after seeing him move that eyepiece, it seems as though the eyepiece had no DAS.
Yeah, it looks like he just completely overshot the L, like he was trying to put it in columns 4 and 5, and his like finger just had a massive slip. Because I don't know where else he would have been trying to put that L, or maybe it looks rotated in the wrong direction.
Let's see, we can go frame by frame here.
Yeah, I really think he rotated in the wrong direction. That makes more sense to me.
Yeah, so it looks like maybe he was trying to just throw it all the way over to set up kind of like a roof burn and probably start trying to build up for a center well.
Oh, like some sort of pole vault?
Yeah, well, it can get, I believe it, with Daz and Quick Tap, this should be able to get all the way over. But then when he rotated, it looks like he accidentally tapped there. Because if we look, that's 1, 2, and then 3. And then it looked like it moved before it fell the third frame. And so then after he tapped, it insta-locked. And then the eyepiece came up next. And since he tapped when he probably didn't mean to, he lost Daz, and that resulted in him not being able to utilize that long bar for a Tetris.
Yeah.
Which it's still very nice how he is able to handle it. And there's one thing probably that is worth mentioning is right here, could have done a spin tuck where after it hits the ground he would have rotated it, and then technically it's a I spin dependency right here. And he would have been able to like burn out a line down, keep the stack a little bit lower, and he would have got the eyepiece for the spin, which if he would have hit, that would have been absolutely fantastic. But eyepiece would, even if he burned it down lower, the eyepiece would probably go over to the left. So that was unfortunate for that misdrop for him to happen, because if he didn't make that misdrop or just found some other way to kind of like cleanly place that L piece, he definitely had potential to take the game.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty incredible how quickly he was able to clean it up. He got that ugly setup with 15 lines left, and he's already Tetris ready again, and he's just getting a tiny bit of a long bar drought there at the end. Had to take a couple extra burns.
So yeah, it was a level 18 Tetris that separated them. So just one mistake at the end, if there wasn't one mistake, or at the beginning, like that first mistake that we said cost him 5 lines, if he didn't make that, he could have potentially beat Svavar.
Yeah, that's true.
Despite
that's crazy.
all of that. Which means that despite, having, that 37 burned line to misdrop in the post-transition, he played efficient enough post-transition to keep up with Svavar, which is actually insane. So like in the pre-transition, Batfoy gave up roughly around 100,000 points, like 80, 90-ish thousand points, which, that's definitely not bad. But then it came to get bad in the post-transition, to where the 37 burn lines and the 16 burn lines, it led him to giving up 53 lines of potential scoring. And those 53 lines, that's just about a little around 300,000 points.
Yeah, I mean, you can really see it in that those graphs in the end, on the end screen here of the match, where Batfoy just has this chunk where there's very little scoring right when he had the biggest lead.
Yeah, and we kind of see, because, he transitioned with a 500,000, Svavar transitioned with a 400,000. Svavar played exceptionally well in the post-transition. Anytime you get, 400k plus post, that means you definitely played well, because, you tack a 400k on, a 500k transition, that's 900k. And unless you're going up against Joseph, a 900k is most likely going to give you a guaranteed victory.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal in-game score. That's most of the times that's what you want just for your qualifying score. You'd be happy with that.
Yeah. And Batfoy just fallen short under 300k post. So we really see, you know, the mathematics are on screen. See how, you know, just even if one of Batfoy's mistakes were taken out, he would have beat Svavar. Which, to look at things from that perspective, that's actually insane.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Now we're going to move on to Game 3, the game where Batfoy dethrones CTEC 3-time champ Svavar. And the first mistake is actually, once again, going to be made by Batfoy at roughly 17 lines. So right here, it's like 4 lines away. Now, at this point, you know, Svavar had, you know, probably regained confidence because he topped out early in 19 and he took his opponent all the way to kill screen. This game might still be a little bit nervous because he only won by 1 Tetris.
Oh, if I was to guess Svavar's mental state, he's probably quite nervous. This is the most competitive round 32 the CTWC has ever seen. Usually, almost every match in the round of 32 is a mismatch. And Svavar had serious aspirations to win the whole thing. He's coming off of 3 consecutive European titles, and already he's on the ropes in round 1. It just speaks to how crazy the competition has gotten.
So, right here, you know, we get up. Now, I assume Batfoy was trying to get this over 1 more, but it could be a reasonable overhang that he set up. However, you know, with the pieces that followed, things didn't look too friendly. And whenever he did that, it looked like he might have accidentally did a misrotation.
Yeah, in that situation, it looks like he could have tucked in the L there cleanly, but then that would have created a very ugly stack at line 17.
Yeah, but fortunately, it actually worked out for him, and he only ended up burning 2 lines from it. However, there was a potentially more efficient way he could have gone about it to where he might not have to burn any lines. As we seen last game, if Batfoy hadn't burned at least four the lines that he had burned throughout the game, he would have won last game. So it can come down to you just not having to burn a couple of lines in the pre-transition. That can end up be the reason why you ended up losing a game.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the best way to actually solve this, there's actually 2 solutions that I have written down, is, you know, you go for the L tuck underneath in columns 7 through 9, then you put the T piece in 8 through 9. Then the O piece would go on 7 through 8, since you put the T piece there to make it like a little spot for the O piece. The Z would have gone in 5 through 6, and then the Tetris would have been scored. Mm-hmm. There is a more aggressive, I'd say it's aggressive, but still, you know, it's kind of safe. It's not necessarily risky, but if you mess up your DAS, which you wouldn't expect Batfoy, a player of his caliber, to mess up his DAS, but if you mess up your DAS, then it could lead you to topping out in this particular situation. So the L and the T would still, you know, go in 7 through 9 and 8 through 9, but this time the O would have gone all the way in columns 1 through 2, since the O can get that far. Then the Z would have gone in columns 3 through 4, and then you would have scored a Tetris and still have, you know, a lot of space on your board. Mm-hmm. So just a small little adjustment that would have prevented Batfoy from having to burn those 2 lines. However, Batfoy dealt with this rather well, actually. So now next, you have something for Svavar at 27 lines. And this comes from him not setting up the long bar dependency, but in return, it kind of makes his board kind of risky. In that particular situation, and not setting up the long bar dependency was actually probably the best thing to do. However, I would have taken this and gone ahead and burned the triple. Because once again, we're at this situation where we're back at this parity, the parity that could potentially have gotten, you know, had Svavar not gotten the right pieces, gotten very ugly very fast.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're in game 3. My mental state in a decider, since I actually just played in a CTM match, my mental state in the decider is survive. If you outlast your opponent, chances are you will win. And it doesn't matter if you have to play it a little bit safe, because, I mean, this is 18. If you give up 4 lines, you're only giving up 20,000 points, which you can easily make up for a Tetris in the later levels. So personally, what I would have done in this is I would have gone ahead and take the triple, give myself more room to try and build and deal with this kind of jagged parity that Svavar has built up on the left.
Yeah, because you don't know if your opponent's going to make it all the way to kill screen. There's a good chance they don't. So if you have more lines to work with and you're surviving longer than they have, then you have more runway.
Yeah. Anyways, my next mistake I found was from Batfoy. Roughly at 28 lines.
Yeah, around the same time.
Yeah. So, right here, it comes a little bit right here. He decides to set up that T-spin dependency.
Yeah, T-spin dependencies are tough because, especially that high up the board.
He eventually would have got the T-piece for it, but now setting up the T-spin dependency, it does cost him 4 lines, which, you know, that's a Tetris. And it'd been more ideal to go ahead either place this L piece in columns 9 through 10, or to go ahead and take the triple. Since this, you know, you have a T trough in the middle of your board, so you might want to wait till you get, you know, more ideal pieces to deal with it. This is also, like, you know, same point with Svavar. This is also a decider where if you top out, there is no more chances. So, as opposed to setting a T-spin dependency where it's a one-piece solve, it'd just be better to, you know, set up a more accommodating build. In fact, even if Batfoy would have just set on columns 8 and 9, the S piece would have gone perfectly right here, and then he would have got the Tetris with having a clean stack.
Yeah.
So, had the pieces been different for him, like had he not got the long bar, maybe gotten like a S burst, or no, maybe gotten Z bursted, or even potentially square bursted, he would now find himself in a difficult situation that could have potentially caused him to top out. So it's just one thing that Batfoy could have done different there. Luckily, it only cost him 4 lines, but it could have got very ugly very fast.
Yeah, for sure.
Now we go to
You had written
to where Batfoy, or not Batfoy, Svavar makes his next mistake at 66 lines. This cost him 3 lines, so they're kind of like exchanging, you know, how many lines they're giving each other to score due to these missed adjustments and things. But it does cost Svavar 3 lines. Although,
yeah,
you know, pieces do, very risky situation. Luckily, pieces fall in his favor. Now, there was a way that he could have potentially stacked differently to have avoided setting that up in the first place. So I approve of that. Now, probably what I would have done with this L, throw it all the way over to the left.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the getting Tetris ready right away situation, where he's just trying to stay aggressive, it looks like.
Yeah. Because he knows that, you know, I would assume that he's like, my opponent is capable of fantastic level 19 survival. I need to get as many points here in the pre-transition as possible. Which, that almost led to his downfall with an early top out. Had pieces been different, had probably one piece in that sequence whenever he covered up as well up that high, had one piece would have been different, I can almost bet that he would have topped out.
Yeah, that looked like a very tough sequence where I didn't see a lot of moves where he was doing all the logical moves and he still barely survived.
Yeah. Maybe even one thing I would have done right here is go ahead and set up a delay burn with this L. Just keep it safe. You know, set a delay burn with this L, maybe put the square over there, and then use the next 2 pieces to try and resolve it.
Or maybe take a delayed burn with the square there. It does cost you 2 lines, but it does keep your stack very clean and safe.
Now, there's another thing that he could have done which I probably would have done knowing that I would set up delay burns like this. But go ahead and like cover this up, set up a delay burn. Or if he doesn't want to set up this delay burn, just place this L piece on top of here, or continue to, increase the delay burn from 1 to 2 lines. Placing that L piece right here, you get the Z piece to open up that hole. Now you have room to burn down. Or you place it right here, you continue the delay burn, place the Z piece right here, and then what's after the Z piece? A T piece, which would have burned out the line, which means you now still have an open well and a safer board.
Yeah.
So just a couple things he could have done to alleviate that, and luckily, it's just a 14-piece drought, so it was fortunate for him. However, Batfoy is about to make another mistake, and this mistake is going to be costlier than all the previous mistakes that we seen in the game, and this mistake is going to cost him 13 lines. So this is actually a little bit of board theory that I like to teach. So right here, the long bar is next. Where would you place the long
bar? Column 7? Alright, sorry, column 8. Vertically?
Yep, that is the right place. Yes, column 8 vertically. Batfoy placed the long bar in column 3.
That's probably where I would have put it too if I only had half a second to think about it. When I was thinking real hard, I was like, But then, that's...
Yeah. From me, because of my personal stacking theory, I recognize immediately, I'm like, okay, I have a two deep, 2 wide dependency somewhere on the left side of my stack. I get this long bar, I can either set up a J piece dependency, or I can set it up on the right side and give myself room to burn. And when you set it up on the right side, you not only have room to burn, but your board is more accommodating. And so then the particular sequence that he was given was IZSTOLS. And the solution that would allowed him to have better board accommodation would, he placed the I piece, like we said, in column 8. The S piece that follows would have then gone in column 6 through 7, or Z piece that follows. Then the S piece that follows has gone in 5 through 7. T piece would go in 9 through 10. So utilizing that double wide weld that we created, which if we didn't create it, then we couldn't have used the T piece for that burn. And then we would have got an O, which would have perfectly fit that dependency. So the O would have then gone in columns 3 through 4, and then the L would have gone in columns 3 through 4 on top of it. Now we have a double wide well that is like 3 high, and we also have an accommodating board with the rest of our stack. But because he decided to place the long bar in column 3, he now is forced to burn 13 lines because of the pieces that follow. Because he's now ends up that J dependency became a long bar dependency. And then he doesn't get the long bar for a couple of pieces, and now his stack has a lot that he has to deal with.
Yeah, he really set up the stack to go all out for a long bar there. He almost didn't get it.
Yeah, so that does cost him quite a few lines, but shockingly enough, Svavar only has a 2 Tetris lead despite, Batfoy giving him essentially 3 Tetrises to score with. Now, next mistake is made by Svavar at 152 lines in the post-transition. So,
this is where it all goes sour,
right here.
I think. Oh, well, this is the precursor to everything going sour.
Yeah. Covering up the well cost him 2 lines. And then now he doesn't continue to get good pieces. Now, what I would have done differently is the misadjustment isn't in this particular case, even though he tops out like 20 lines later, it's not necessarily bad, but this is what kind of I feel like after you you had missed an adjustment like that, maybe even if after you recognize it, because sometimes that happens to me a lot. It's like right after I do that, and then I get my next piece, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So maybe that same thing could have potentially happened to Svavar here. The missed adjustment, like I said, isn't necessarily bad, but this causes Svavar to miss a Tetris that Batfoy scores, allowing him to, essentially tie the game, separating them by a double.
Yeah.
Had Svavar was able to score the Tetris, he would have been able to still maintain a 1 Tetris lead over Batfoy. So I like the way that he burned that out. And there's just a couple adjustments that he could have done earlier that would have allowed him to get that Tetris.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
But now...
he's okay right now.
Svavar is going to...
yeah, he's like, okay right now. He got the Tetris. He's still very close.
And I like that T-burn right there. That T-burn was very key. Had he placed it the other way to try and go aggressive, that could have ended up badly for him. Now this is where his stack kind of gets a little bit unfavorable, but he luckily gets favorable pieces. Now we're closing in to where he makes a fatal misdraw.
Yeah.
It's going to be right there when he hangs that T. And that misdrop is just so hard to kind of solve. But the way that he was stacking prior to the misdrop is just so unfriendly. So, let's see. We're going to go right here. The way that I would have played this after, I've burned all this down. Place the T-piece there. Why not lay the long bar flat there?
Yeah.
You had, instead of kind of tapering it off, you lay it flat, you give yourself more building opportunities. And in laying the long bar flat there, he would have got 2 T-pieces, which he could have used to place 1 T-piece right here and another right here to potentially, go ahead and burn this out and only leave 1 Mino. Or he could have stacked them in a different way that would have still, allowed him to get out of the situation faster. I mean, obviously we can't necessarily predict the misdrops that a player might do, but if he had a flat build instead of having this long bar stood up, then if he just dropped the T-piece like that, he would have been fine.
No, that's true. Yeah, laying the long bar flat means there's very little chance of a misdrop for the T-piece because you can't really have one.
Unless you rotate it the wrong way.
Right, true. If there's a different...
And set up a weird overhang and 2 and a 3 deep dependency over there on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
Which still, even though it's a little bit dangerous on 19, it's nowhere as bad as this particular situation.
Yeah. And then Svavar ends up running into the same thing that killed him in game 1, which is a missed skill stop, or a missed quick tap, trying to get a long bar over to...
Yeah. Now, probably what he could have done, even though it might have been a little bit risky, is instead of placing this over here, I'm pretty sure you can easily quick tap this piece over here to place in columns 1 through 2. Would have burned out 2 lines, and then he would have the potential to tuck this next piece underneath, either setting up another long bar dependency here, allowing him to get rid of this main long bar dependency. It's just so many different ways he could, attacked it. But in setting this up, he's only given 2 options. Either try and quick tap. Wait, that's 6 high. He doesn't need a quick tap for a 6 high.
Oh, did he just not have dash loaded?
He just didn't. Yeah, he didn't have a full dash charge.
That sucks.
Yeah, because you can get a long bar over a 6 high dash,
Yeah.
which means he started with a partial dash charge, and it looks like he actually quick tapped there a little bit early. Here, let me go frame by frame.
Oh, okay, so maybe he was eyeballing it, thinking he needed a quick tap and just mistimed it.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's definitely, yeah, he quick tapped it way too early, because right here you see it go at this moment. If it was a Daz, if he had full Daz charge, goes 1, 2, and then it would have moved over. It would have just moved over automatically, but he tapped it from here to here instead of letting it go. So he could have still potentially got over with a perfect or imperfect dash charge had he not had quick tapped it. Just, I believe that's 2 frames too early, which causes him to hang this, and then unless you're Joseph or Mark, you're not getting.
Yeah, I mean, can you even get an L over that?
No.
Yeah.
You probably could try and pole vault it to kind of like snap it, but
it's still an uphill battle.
The rest is,
to even try.
Yeah, and so then that causes.
Yeah, he tries. Yeah.
That causes Svavar game 3 and round 1. So, anyways, before I go on and talk about what's going to be coming up next on CTMA, I'd just like to say huge thank you to aGameScout, who came on me with co-commentary for this Batfoy versus Svavar match. This definitely wouldn't be nearly as insightful without him here, and you guys should go and check out his channel as well as the video on Max Out Theory him and I did. Think you guys will find it a pretty interesting watch. Would you like to say anything else, aGameScout?
I don't think so. I think that was a very nice closing. Thanks for the kind words. And yeah, if I said anything dumb that you discover in editing, you have go ahead and edit however you want what I said. But yeah, this was awesome. Thanks for having me on for a commentary. I'm really looking forward to the YouTube scene growing over this next year for Tetris.
Yeah, hopefully we can have you for another match that we break down on CTMA. Maybe it might be in the quarterfinals or maybe even semis.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to be back.
First things first, thank you all so much for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know by putting down hashtag Batfoy or hashtag Svavar in your comments so I know who you were rooting for and who you wanted to win this matchup, as well as, of course, I know that you made it to the end of the video. Anyways, coming up on CTMA is we still have Harry Hong versus Matt Martin match breakdown being worked on for AMJ's channel. Worst case scenario, if we can't get it in time, we're going to try and get it before CTWC 2019 at the least, but if we can't get it in time, then it'll be uploaded on my channel as well. Second, the next commentary that I'm going to do is going to be solo commentary, and it's going to be between either Chris Brady versus Stacy round 0 matchup or Mega Retro Man versus Michael aka Shallow round 0 matchup. Also, if you have a suggestion for a match that you would like to see, let me know down in the comments below. And this is from CTWC 2019, of course. Anyways, if you liked the video and you liked hearing me and aGameScout analyze Batfoy versus Svavar's game, leave a like. Comment down, what did you think? Isn't it crazy how just a single Tetris or one less mistake could have been the difference between a player winning a game or not? And what is your feedback? I made a bunch of changes, especially since this is the second duo commentary that I've done. The first one was with AMJ. So let me know your feedback. Share with your friends. Maybe they might find people breaking down Tetris matches interesting. Or maybe, you know, it might be a good way for them to, you know, listen to if they have insomnia. You never know. And before I go and, you know, promote my own channel like I always do, so once again, huge shout out to aGameScout for collabing with me in this video. This would not be as insightful because he caught things that I missed and vice versa. So go check out aGameScout's channel. There's going to be a Max Out Theory video that's going to be uploaded onto his channel soon, so be looking forward to that. Anyways, while all the videos on my channel are about me breaking down high-level matches from this past World Championship, there's still plenty of content here on this channel. And if you like it, why not stick around for a bit? There's plenty of more exciting content to come in July, especially with my birthday coming up in 3 days, so looking forward to that. Anyways, my name is Michael, better known as ITZsharky, and I'll see you all in the next video.